Hey, what's up, guys? Happy New Year to you. Hope everybody's staying bundled up and warm. I know it's cold out there. It's snowing in a lot of places. Here in Atlanta, it's not snowing, but we have a really cold rain, which I can't stand. I hate cold rain. But I went in and got my road work in before the rain started coming down. So we're good. Anyway, wanted to do a quick video talking about something as it relates to Filip Hrgovic. So currently with the IBF in their heavyweight ratings, they are trying to get a fight together between Hrgovic and the next top-rated available contender to do an eliminator fight. For the winner of that fight would be the mandatory for unified heavyweight champion, but specifically IBF heavyweight champion Alexander Usyk. And I tweeted about this yesterday because there have been a couple of guys that have rejected the offer to have that fight with Hrgovic. Luis Ortiz is one of them. Of course, he just fought recently. He just beat Charles Martin on New Year's Day on PBC pay-per-view. And then Joseph Parker also did, right? So I tweeted yesterday, man, nobody wants to fight Filip Hrgovic, which is true. Nobody wants to fight him. But, listen, a lot of you guys responded to that tweet, and the industry pays attention to my Twitter. I mean, my Twitter account is big enough now where they can't ignore me. Even the ones that hate me pay attention. But a friend of mine in the business, high-level promoter, he's done all sorts of things in the business pretty much for decades, right? I won't name his name here because I don't know if he wants to me to call him out publicly or anything, but he saw that tweet, reached out to me, gave me a call last night. We chatted real quick, and he just dropped some perspective that honestly was really, really good stuff. And I wanted to share some of that with you and some of my thoughts after him and I spoke just about this situation, because the reality is, and some of you guys won't like what I have to say, but I really can't blame Ortiz and Parker for not going forward with the Filip Hrgovic eliminator fight. Real quick, let me share my screen here. I just want to show you guys the IBF ratings. These are the latest ratings. This is as of November. They don't have December 21 or January 22 ratings up. But you see right there, they don't have a number one guy. Charles Martin, of course, was number two, but he just got knocked out, right? And it was ridiculous that he was even number two. So he's off. It's Filip Hrgovic there at number three, and then they're going to go down from there, right? I think they reached out to Luis Ortiz because he beat Martin, and he rejected. They reached out to Joseph Parker. He rejected. Of course, next on the list is Anthony Joshua. He has a rematch with Usyk coming up, so he will turn that down. Then you have Tony Yoka and Joe Joyce, and you go down from there, right? So let me speak specifically about Luis Ortiz and Joseph Parker here. Yeah, I need to drop, and we're going to have to talk money. And you guys know I hate the pocket watchers. I can't stand that. I really, really can't. But in this case, money does play a factor. It truly, truly does. So in the case of Luis Ortiz, he just fought on a pay-per-view. He just headlined it against Charles Martin. That was a showcase fight for him and ended up being closer and more competitive than many would have predicted. But he got the W. And look, he's been on a few pay-per-views now, right? He fought Deontay Wilder twice on pay-per-view. I believe he got 7 figures for those 2 fights. Now, I don't know if he got 7 figures against Martin because this was a discounted pay-per-view that maybe only 10,000 or so people ended up buying. But it had to be high 6 figures, right? So this is a guy that's been getting high 6 figures and even a couple times probably got 7 figures for several recent fights. Now, do I think he's worth that kind of money and everything? Probably not, but we'll talk more about that later because we're in an era where many fighters are overpaid. Even actually, probably most high-level fighters are probably overpaid in the current market. But we'll talk about that more in a second. Joseph Parker, of course, he just fought against Derek Chisora, right? I know for a fact that he got, I believe it was 1.1, 1.2 million guaranteed purse. But here's the thing. On top of that, for that fight, he had all the exclusive rights to the Australian and New Zealand TV revenue. So when you factor that in with everything else he has going on, sponsorships and all that, and you got to remember, he's very, very popular over in that part of the world. He's a star over there, okay? Who knows? Maybe 2 million. Okay, we'll just call it 2 million. It could be more, it could be less. We're just going to call it 2 million here. But I know 1.1, I believe it was 1.1, was guaranteed from the actual purse from Hearn and Matchroom for his fight with Chisora. So keep those dollar figures in mind, okay? Because as it relates to Hrgovic, he is the quote unquote A side of this eliminator. So he is entitled to, I believe it's 75% of the purse split if the eliminator fight negotiations go to purse bid, okay? And the simple fact is Hrgovic is not a big name. And when I say that, he's not even as big of a name as Demetrius Andrade, if I'm going to be honest, guys. He's not even that high up, okay? He's, let's see, pulling up his record. He was 14-0, 12 knockouts, right? He's been a pro for about 4 years, and he's definitely at the contender level right now, but his resume is pretty weak. I mean, if you look, honestly, I mean, his resume looks like a prospect's resume, but because of his amateur accomplishments and the way he's taking care of business against the level of opposition he has fought, we could call him a junior contender. He's at that stage, but he's from Croatia. It's not a big market. It's not as if there's a huge Croatian population here in America, in the West, where there's going to be, significant fan turnout or something for one of his fights. If he were to fight here, or even if he, in terms of viewership, there's not an ethnic contingent here in America, in the West, for a Croatian fighter. And this is something that you guys have to remember. Some of these fighters from other parts of the world, yes, foreign TV money, quote unquote. When I say foreign, by the way, I realize that sounds ignorant and ethnocentric, and I apologize for that. As an American, okay, and I'm talking about the American boxing landscape, the American networks, okay, and I'll include Americans' DAZN coverage is part of that, okay. When I say foreign or non-domestic, I'm talking non-American, okay, because I realize a lot of you guys are watching from around the world, so I just want to make that clear. But some of these countries, they're bringing in some foreign TV money, some revenue, but some more than others, right? The two biggest boxing footprints in terms of media scope and everything outside of the United States are obviously Mexico and the UK. Those are the two biggest ones. There's also growing scenes in other parts of the world. I could talk about all that, but you guys, you can see that, and the evidence of that is how different American promoters, even the PBC, have tried to buy into the UK and Mexican markets. Just look at whether they sign fighters from those parts of the world and put on fights over there or not. In the case of PBC, a lot of the top PBC fighters, their opponents are from either Mexico, Latin America, or the UK. There's a reason for that, right? So why do I bring all this up? Because again, when we're talking dollars, we're talking purse bid splits and all that. Let's say at maximum, let's say there's a $2 million purse bid proposal put up from Sauerland, who promotes Hrgovic, and they win. Well, in that situation, Hrgovic would get 75%. So he get 1.5. The opponent would get $500,000. Okay. And a $2 million purse bid for a Filip Hrgovic fight right now is probably pretty good, because he does not command a lot of money. He's just not a name yet. And it's not just that it's not even that he's not a name yet. He hasn't built himself up yet. There's no media footprint or anything or significant presence coming from the Croatian market. Let's just be honest. That's the reality here. If he was from the UK, if he was from Mexico, different story, right? And maybe even a couple other countries. But from Croatia, it is what it is. So, and I'm going to pull up his resume again real quick. I'm just going to look here. His last fight was in Las Vegas, but he's also fought in many different countries. Germany, looks like Saudi Arabia. He has fought once in Mexico. He's kind of fought all over the place. He's kind of a fighter without a home. The one place he doesn't fight in is his home country, because again, there's just no market there. So again, sticking with this example of a $2 million purse bid, where Hrgovic gets 1.5, the opponent gets 500,000. We go back to Luis Ortiz and Joseph Parker, who have made 7-figure paydays to fight lesser opposition. Why would you take a pay cut like that in a fight that isn't a title fight, guys? This is an eliminator, right? Because Usyk has the title. This is for the rights to fight against Usyk later on. So in the case of Luis Ortiz, obviously, I think most of us would agree, Filip Hrgovic beats Luis Ortiz, right? We saw how he struggled with Charles Martin. Hrgovic would absolutely flatten Charles Martin. So I think it's safe to say Hrgovic would beat Luis Ortiz at this point, based on everything we've seen. By no way am I saying Hrgovic is the next George Foreman or even Lennox Lewis or Vladimir Klitschko. He's not, but he's beatable, okay? But he's certainly a tough night at the office for anybody with his size, his strength. Might be the strongest natural fighter in the division. Doesn't have to lift weights to be as strong as he is. He just, I think, has that natural brute strength, and he's aggressive, offensively aggressive, right? So why would you take a significant pay cut? I'm talking 50%, 75% pay cut for an eliminator fight, when if you're Luis Ortiz, obviously later this year, he's going to be in a high-profile PBC pay-per-view, maybe against Andy Ruiz. Who knows who it will be? But that's what they're going to do with him, and he's going to cash out because Andy Ruiz would beat him. Wilder would beat him again if they fought again for a third time. Who knows? Maybe that could even happen. But whatever direction they go in with him, he's probably going to get one more payout before he's done, right? And why would you take $500,000 against Hrgovic when you can get probably more than that in a different fight later this year? And then with even more so with Parker. With Parker, again, I just gave you guys the figures of his last fight against Derek Chisora. And he's had, this is a guy who had a title before, right? And he unified titles with Anthony Joshua, came up short, but that was a significant payday for him. And he's been in other high-profile fights after he signed with Matchroom, after that fight with Joshua, Dillian White and guys like that. So this is a guy here who could probably sit tight and see what happens between Usyk and Joshua. And should Joshua get beat again by Usyk, perhaps Parker fights Joshua again. That's more money. That's still a pretty big fight over in the UK. I mean, he's going to have options. So I hate to be this way, and because I know a lot of you guys out there saying, Mike, you always say, who gives a shit about the dollars and stuff, but you guys got to think about it. I'm not talking about the fan perspective here and the pocket watchers and all these guys who live vicariously through fighter purses and all. I'm not talking about that bullshit. I'm talking about this from a fighter perspective, okay? If you guys were, let's just stick with this scenario. If you were getting overpaid, if you were the cashier at a Kroger or a Publix, whatever supermarket you have where you live, right? If you were a cashier and you were getting overpaid, you were getting $50,000 a year, right? That's overpaid to be a cashier, okay? And suddenly your boss comes up to you and says, you know what? We want you to be the evening store manager. So you're going to come in here at night and you're going to run the store, right? And we're going to pay you $25,000. Would you do it? Some of you out there would be like, oh, it's about the opportunity, right? But who the hell would take a 50% pay cut for a shittier job, right? Now, if you were being paid accordingly as a cashier and you were making 20 grand a year, I'm just throwing out raw numbers here, guys, okay? I realize some of you might be cashiers and make more than that, depending on the market you live in. Just stay with me here with this analogy. If you're being paid $20,000 as a cashier, and then you are offered the evening store manager position for $25,000, you might say, well, what the fuck? I only get $5,000 raise? I should get $30,000, $35,000, but it's still more money. And you still might consider it and do it because it'd be the opportunity and more money. You see what I'm saying? So if you're being paid the right rate, then when you get that offer and you get a little bit more money, it's worth it. But if you're already being overpaid, if you're getting all this money to do a cashier position, and then they want you to be the manager for half the money, no one's going to do that. None of you would do it, even if it was quote unquote the right thing to do. Come on, let's be honest here. None of you would do it, okay? So here's what's going to end up happening. is I look at these ratings here. Okay. Again, Joshua's out. The next one up is Tony Yoka. You know, he's probably going to turn it down, but maybe somebody like Joe Joyce. You know, maybe it's Yoka, maybe it's Ajit Kabayel, maybe it's Murat Gassiev, which I wouldn't mind seeing. I got to be honest. Murat Gassiev versus Filip Hrgovic, sign me up for that shit. It's going to be one of those type of fighters that doesn't bring in the economic muscle already, doesn't have that star power, isn't making all that kind of money, that needs the opportunity and wouldn't mind making $500,000 to Filip Hrgovic's 1.5 million. And again, these are just numbers I'm throwing out, guys. These are estimates. I'm just saying in terms of the purse bid split, if it goes to a purse bid negotiation, okay? I'm saying a guy like Murat Gassiev, Ajit Kabayel, they probably ain't going to turn down that kind of money with the opportunity to potentially get a title shot. They're probably going to jump at that shit, right? So that's probably what's going to happen here. And this is how, in a way, money can, I'm not going to say corrupt the game, because this isn't corruption right here, right? This isn't corruption. But money in some ways could kind of pervert the game, right? Because, again, if in these mandatory type situations, these mandatory situations are supposed to help a guy like Hrgovic, who doesn't bring any economic muscle to the table. I used Demetrius Andrade earlier as an example. There's plenty I could bring up, right? It's to help those guys get an opportunity, right? But if you are already a star fighter that's made a certain amount of money, you're not going to go for this. And it's easy for us to look at it and be like, oh, he's ducking. And in a sense, you can argue, yeah, I'm not going to say ducking, but in a sense, Joseph Parker, let's use him specifically, but even Luis Ortiz, those two guys who turned down this fight, and so will Anthony Joshua, obviously. I don't think any of those guys are ducking Filip Hrgovic. They've all fought better fighters, or at least more proven fighters so far. All of them. Luis Ortiz fought Wilder twice. Joseph Parker has fought several top guys. Anthony Joshua has the best resume in the heavyweight division in terms of quality of opposition, the most top 10 contenders. So they've proven themselves. They've gotten to a certain level. Why would they take this fight with Hrgovic? It doesn't make any sense. So not every situation is the same, because I know some of you guys out there are going to be like, well, Mike, if it was a PBC fighter, you wouldn't be defending him. Well, first of all, Luis Ortiz, last time I checked, is a PBC fighter. So back the fuck up. But second, not every situation is the same, okay? Because there will be people out there that will try to compare this situation to when Deontay Wilder turned down $100 million to fight the main man in the division at that time. That's just a flat out fucking duck, okay? That's not comparable to this situation at all. So you guys got to remember that. And to like use an example in the middleweight division right now, Gennady Golovkin, because a lot of people are beating on Golovkin for not fighting Demetrius Andrade, right? Why isn't he fighting Andrade? Well, he's already got a deal to fight Murata. But after that, even, let's say he beats Murata, why isn't he fighting Andrade? Guys, Gennady Golovkin has made probably $100 million in prize fighting so far, right? His fights with Canelo Alvarez were massive paydays. And I know you don't want to hear this, but a third fight at 168 in 2022 against Canelo is still an 8-figure payday for Golovkin. The Murata fight, which will happen probably in April, maybe March, April, will happen in Japan. That is an 8-figure payday. I don't think you realize how big that fight is. Why would you go from a $10-20 million payday, and potentially even more if you does fight Canelo again? And look, in 2022, Golovkin might have he might make $50 million this year. If he fights Murata and Canelo, and those are successful promotions, okay, I know it's a long shot, but he's at least going to make, let's say, 30 million in those two fights. It could be 50, depending on all the foreign TV and all that stuff, the pay-per-view upsides, all of it. Why would you go from that to Demetrius Andrade, who is going to offer you a few $1 million? Few $1 million. That's, guys, this isn't like a 50% pay cut. That's like a 90% pay cut, potentially. Why would you go there? It doesn't make sense at this stage of his career. And I wouldn't be defending him or defending Luis Ortiz, Joseph Parker in this sense if they wouldn't have already proven themselves, but they have. They've fought top guys. They've proven themselves. They're at a different level in the sport. And that's what I say for guys like Filip Hrgovic. I don't feel bad for him right now. Honestly, I look at his fucking resume and the fact that he's about to be in a title eliminator, he's doing pretty good for himself. So I don't feel bad for Filip Hrgovic that nobody wants to fight him. I don't feel bad at all for Demetrius Andrade because he's one of the most overpaid fighters in the sport right now. You look at what he brings to the table economically versus what he's accomplished. And unlike guys like Ortiz, Parker, I use Golovkin as an example, who have put up, it's either put up or shut up, right? They put up. They fought top guys. And Andrade hasn't yet. Has he been avoided? Yes. But he should be calling out guys like Charlo. He should be calling out guys like Munguia. He could fight Alakameni right now, the Janibek, right? He could fight him right now because that's his mandatory. He's not calling any of those guys out. He wants to go right to the main man. That's his prerogative. Good for him. He has a title. He's definitely more accomplished than Hrgovic. He's a step past him in his career. So he could go forward with that. But I just wanted to give some more perspective on this thing with Hrgovic. I hope you guys hear what I'm saying and understand that I'm not being a pocket watcher. I'm not trying to justify fighters ducking other fighters. I want to see the best fight the best. But let's be totally honest here. Luis Ortiz and Joseph Parker, or even Anthony Joshua, do you want to see Hrgovic fight any of those guys yet? I don't think he's at that level yet. I want to see him fight a top 10 fighter first. I want to see him fight a top 15, top 20 fighter. I'm looking to get at his resume. What's the top name on his resume? An ancient Rydell Booker, an ancient Kevin Johnson, an ancient Amir Mansour. So let's be real here. Okay. I want to see him fight somebody like a Murat Gassiev, who is still building himself up at heavyweight. Somebody like Ajit Caballel, maybe even a Tony Yoka, who's still untested. Joe Joyce, who is definitely further along than all those guys, but I'd like to see. That's kind of the matchups I want to see before he goes up against those top guys. That's the way this thing's supposed to work. So wanted to share that with you guys and get your thoughts. Let me know, am I crazy? Am I totally off base here? Or do you follow what I'm saying? No show this Friday on my channel, the Friday wrap-up. But next week, TNC is back. It'll be episode 296 on Ring TV's YouTube channel. So look for that Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern. And then we'll probably do a Friday wrap-up show. Although, I don't know, there's not a whole lot to talk about because COVID just crushed the fight between Joe Smith Jr. and Callum Johnson. Callum Johnson's tested positive for COVID. They're going to find a replacement opponent. But, man, you're talking about a week out, a week and a half out. Who are they going to be able to find that's going to interest us as much as the matchup between Smith and Johnson? Like, that was going to be a fun, in terms of styles. I mean, Smith obviously is light years more accomplished, fought much, much better opposition. But just in terms of styles, I really think that was going to deliver. First buzzkill of the year due to COVID. More of those will come. Trust me. All right, guys, stay safe. If you're having inclement weather, be smart out there on the roads. All right, and I'll see you guys next Monday. All right, have a good one.